Good morning. This rainy Friday morning, you are most welcome to New Day TV. Today, as you know, our show is about legal matters. So Sheria Wiki Hii and karibuni sana. Go to our social media pages, that is New Day TV on Facebook, on YouTube. Share, like, subscribe, comment, and let's have a conversation. Our topics today are very interesting, and we are privileged to have two very senior members of the legal profession and also a member of parliament representing Kirinyaga County. So karibuni sana. Poleni najua mumeamuka mapema lakini musijali.
It's okay.
Nitanunua chai. Karibuni Daktari, how have you been?
Been very well.
Tumekumiss. Last week ulitu abandon.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling too well, so that's why.
Pole, I hope you're feeling better.
Yes, I am feeling better now.
Okay, karibu.
Yeah,
Mwesh, it is your first time here, but
Yes.
Nonetheless, feel welcome. Kindly introduce yourself briefly.
Thank you.
And what you do.
I'm Njeri Maina,
Yes.
an advocate by profession and the county member of parliament for Kirinyaga. I sit in JLAD committee and NGCDF. And, this is long overdue. I was supposed to come here, I think, immediately after I got elected. Mm-hmm. Yes, so there was that focus on the young people who had gotten elected. And I think the timelines didn't add up, but well, I'm here.
They say God's time is the best, so you're here. Karibu Mwesh.
Thank you very much.
Daktari, tuambie.
Mutaka niwaambie nini? I'm happy to be back on the show.
Yeah.
After like 2 weeks of not...
Of hiatus.
Yes, that's because I was not feeling too well, so I'm back.
No problem. Now, Mwesh, quickly take us through. You have a proposed amendment to the KSL Bill 2023. So kindly take us through, and then maybe we can have further discussion from there.
We actually, that bill had been tabled in the last parliament. It had been tabled by the leader of majority, Honorable Amos Kemunya at the time. And when I joined parliament, some students approached me. And they have a caucus of around 3,000 membership who've never been admitted because Section 16 requires that you must have had a B plane in either English or Kiswahili. And some of these students have now even gone further ahead to get their master's degree. So I felt that the Legal Education Act, Section 8, provides for progressive learning and says that if there's any contradiction between the two, the Legal Education Act supersedes. But then, of course, with that mischief at play, KSL decided not to follow the Legal Education Act and instead ensure that they act on the KSL Act in terms of ATP admission. So from there, I picked on that amendment, and the previous parliament had provided, or rather proposed, that we scrape off Section 16 altogether. But I said, well, just to balance it off and to make sure that it's in line with the Legal Education Act, let us just provide for progressive learning, in that if someone has done a degree from a recognized university, a master's, they can now be admitted for the ATP program, even though they had not acquired the minimum B plane in English or Swahili. Because from where I stand, these students are going to sit the same exam for ATP. So, what is the basis for the same? And these are laws that were made, and from where I stand as a millennial, these are laws that are archaic and they do not help in progression of the legal profession. If you look at the ratio, it's 1 to 5,000. So, of course, the people who are already admitted and practicing, they feel as if, they want to be gatekeepers of the profession because they feel that more people will join in and dilute the market. But at the end of the day, it's just like with the medical students. Barely 14 years ago, we were having like 300 interns per year. Now we have 1,500. And you see that the population growth, it demands that we also have more lawyers in the market. Yes.
Okay. No problem. Now, thank you for taking us through it. And so, while it is important to consider equal opportunity and fairness, it is also equally important to consider, to maintain the high standards and integrity that we know the law profession to be. So is it that when you will open up, you will have now more quacks coming in? Will you have more underprepared lawyers? Will the market be flooded? And how do you guard against that?
Like I've said, those of us who are already practicing would want to keep the profession. And I've given an example of medics and the ballooning population because as years go on and the ratio that we have, we still have so many inequalities in terms of access to justice. And from where I stand, it is not diluting the profession because, like I've said, this person already has a master's degree. They're just being admitted to sit for the ATP program so that they can be admitted as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. They sit the same exam. So if they are not really qualified, then they will not pass the bar exam. And there is even a pre-bar exam that is proposed by Kenya School of Law. So it holds no water from where I stand. I think it's just an argument coming from people who feel as if now there'll be too many people in the profession. And we already have around now, I think 20,000, 22,000 lawyers. Every year, I remember the Chief Justice saying we're admitting around 2,000 plus advocates.
Okay, so the question of public and private universities, where do they stand on this? Because they're the ones who, not so long ago or long ago, we had Nairobi University, KU and Moi offering the law degree. But now with the opening up of other private universities, so, it is the same thing when you look at it, because where do you want these people to go to? They have spent their time, their money, their resources, and now they graduate and you tell them, okay, look, you have passed your university, but we are sorry, you didn't get a B in English or Kiswahili. So then what happens? Because we need to consider that.
That's another thing, and I'm proposing a motion on the floor so that the higher education can also ensure that we match in terms of demands in the market and admission at the university level. We licensed, I think now nearly every university is offering a law degree. Yeah. So many other universities are offering clinical medicine. So you find that these are people who have invested their resources and time. A law degree takes 4 years. If you've done a diploma, maybe you did it for 1 year. If you've done a master's, 2 years. That's 7 years. That is your time,
your
money. And it is so hard. Any young lawyer who is not admitted to the bar can tell you how hard it is to even find any decent job, even just within Nairobi. And Nairobi is where the law practice is booming. I recall before my admission, your value as a lawyer before you're admitted is so low that law firms will pay you as little as Kenya shillings 12,000.
What?
And it is something that a lot of lawyers, young lawyers, are struggling with. As I speak, more than 5 students have committed suicide. So it is a quagmire these young people are caught up in. What are we telling them? We already admitted them to study for the degree. We already admitted them for masters. It is the government that licensed these institutions. If we really want them to cap and match on a need basis, even in regard to the medics, then let us do it at the very base level so that we do not have a young populace that is frustrated.
Okay, because also, Mwesh, admission to study students for the LLB program does not also necessarily guarantee automatic admission to KSL. Because if you pass, it is only based on merit, right? So if you can pass the LLB program in your university, it means also at KSL, you are proficient in the language. You know what you're doing. So, why not be given the chance? And
then after you undertake the ATP program at Kenya School of Law, then you have to sit for the Council for Legal Education examination.
Okay, so there's a
and you have to also
process.
Get your 9 Ps before then you can apply for an admission. So it's a whole other process.
Ps? You are talking to a pseudo lawyer. Daktari, nisaidie hapa.
Okay, so first of all, let me just give a background. I used to teach at the Kenya School of Law.
Okay.
Back in the days and my class was 100 students maximum.
Uh-huh.
Of course, the Kenya School of Law, the training at the Kenya School of Law, the ATP, which I was actually involved in drafting then. To be honest, the numbers have watered down the integrity of the legal profession. We now have many quacks in the legal profession, just like we have quacks in many other professions as well. The medics and whatever, people masquerading as lawyers. And I think even there are very recent events where people actually have not qualified to be lawyers, but they pretend to represent. So the background to this is also the commercialization of our education. In fact, if there is one thing that has really killed the integrity and the quality of education, is these parallel programs. Because parallel programs are actually money raising. They are not really impacting quality education, whether it matters law or health or any other. So that parallel approach to acquiring a degree has actually belittled, to the extent that today, I'm sure maybe Moesia will be aware, Nigeria is already even saying that they don't want to recognize universities from Kenya.
Degrees from here.
Degrees from Kenya. And yet, sometimes back,
we are giants.
We are one of the most educated countries in sub-Saharan Africa.
That's true.
Actually, second to Zimbabwe in terms of per capita. So for me, the truth for the matter is, the legal profession now is so crowded by so many people. And then, let me tell you, the requirement for, say, certain grades in subjects is for purposes of ensuring that you have the tools of doing your legal advocacy or your legal work. Lawyers ought to be able to communicate eloquently and to be able, to administer, to advocate for their clients' briefs. Now, every profession must have its levels of integrity. You can't just admit anybody just because, like Mheshimiwa was saying, because you have got a master's degree. We also know that today, people go to just do an LLB because there's a decoration in their CVs, but they don't really actually mean, and I'm sorry, but I'm saying this from the background of when I went to the university, it was the only university that was giving teaching law, the faculty of law at the University of Nairobi back in the days. And to be a lawyer was then very, very competitive. And we are only like a maximum of 150 from all over the country. And you needed to attain certain grades in certain subjects that are very key in ensuring that you perform your work well. Now, the truth for the matter also is that, and I don't want to undermine anybody who went to study law outside the country. There is a very famous university, and famous because of the person who is behind it. It's called Baba Saheb Ambedkar. Baba Saheb, I think, was a lawyer, if I'm not wrong, but it was from those so-called lower castes in India. So there's a university called Marathwada in India. And when we were doing ATP, those days when I was teaching law at the Kenya School of KSL, of course you will ask for the transcript of students. And you will see that people have been getting D's, E's, year 1, year 2,
suddenly.
year 3, and then suddenly
magic happens.
Someone get a first class. And normally they'll come with 2 degrees, an economic degree
and a law degree.
And a law degree. But if you look at the transcript of somebody perform,
the track record,
it's like, this last year, what magic did you actually perform to get an A? And again, and part of the reason why there was this pre-admission exam was just to test, for example, even your communication. Some people could not communicate. I mean, I remember teaching a class where during break time, you could just hear people speaking in their mother tongue.
Uko KSL.
Yes.
Guys.
And yet, to be honest with you, of course, we want the legal profession to be looked at as a certain way. And the truth for the matter is, Moesh, you also know that we lawyers are not necessarily popular with the general public. We are called thieves. And why are we being called thieves?
Criminals.
We are called thieves because there's a bunch, quite a sizable number of lawyers who are actually stealing from clients.
True.
They are not representing clients properly. And that's why, for me, I will not depart from that requirement of strict compliance with certain requirements for you to be admitted as an advocate. You can study law. I also know many lawyers with LLBs who are not interested in practice. They have the LLB, they are in-house lawyers in corporations corporates and whatever. But as an advocate, there are certain rigors we expect of you as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. And therefore, for me, those qualifications are very important. It's partly the reason why the Law Society of Kenya introduced continuous professional development, CPD. So you have to attend certain lectures, at least 5 of them in a year.
For you to keep...
For your certificate to be renewed.
To be renewed.
So we have to make sure that you're actually up to speed with the
What's
recent
going on,
developments
yeah.
of law. And law now is developing. For some time back, we never even used to think about technology law.
Climate change,
Climate change.
Yeah.
Sports law.
Yeah.
Is an alien. And I think maybe next time Brenda comes to the show.
As she's a sports lawyer,
because she's
yes.
an enthusiast of sports law. And so many areas are now opening up, extractive industries, for example. And that requires that you must be a person capable of acquiring certain levels of knowledge. So we cannot just have an avalanche just because you have got a degree or a master's. We also know, Mheshimiwa here even knows herself that although she sits in parliament, she has an LLB. I'm sure she also knows that some of our colleagues who have questionable degrees. And I think there's a big investigation about some of those people. For her, she may not be worried.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people hiding behind this, and they can't even prove.
Where they went to school, even as simple as that.
Exactly. I remember even when we were going for our nomination or clearance to run for presidency,
yeah.
there are some people who could not even produce a certificate. They produced transcripts. Now, you see, if you look at it from a bigger perspective, we are actually undervaluing our education.
That's true.
I think we need to go qualitative, not just mass. And by the way, everybody thinks that having a degree is the alpha and omega. When I was a student in the UK many years back, I came across a group called the Plumbing Society of England and Wales.
Doctor, are you serious?
I'm telling you, you just Google them. Yeah, those guys are paid a lot of money. Plumbers, So, they don't have degrees, but they have got the technical know-how, and you pay them per hour. But I think in Kenya, people think that when you have got a certificate, a degree, that is it. And you see, even if you go back memory lane, there's a time in our country, I think during the Kanu era, that where village politics were actually thriving.
Yes, yes.
Do you know today?
Yes, masonry, carpentry. Yeah.
Electricians.
Yeah.
Today, honestly, to find a trusted plumber, try building a house, and let's have this conversation.
Itaniramba.
You'll be shocked. After completion, maybe Mheshimiwa is building a rural home in Kirinyaga. She will have to spend more money to fix the plumbing, and that's because we have really
watered down.
We have killed our education system, and we are not appreciating skills. Not everybody must go to a university. There are people who are very knowledgeable and skillful in certain areas. So again, coming to the discussion around the law degree, my many years of legal practice, I can tell you, I meet lawyers who are not lawyers. They may have a LLB, but honestly, when it comes to practice, Maisha will confirm to you, there is what we call sharp practice. Not practicing law as it is. We have lawyers who actually also mess up their clients. Even in terms of, you see, one of the things about legal practice is you must be able to communicate
effectively
your client's case. And that comes into the whole question of drafting. How do you draft your pleadings, your client's case? So you must really have a certain command of certain
the Queen's language. Yeah.
I can tell you today, very few lawyers will even cross-examine a client in Kiswahili. True or false?
Sure.
You can be very eloquent in English, these accomplished lawyers. But when it comes to a national language like Kiswahili, cross-examining, many lawyers struggle. And not just lawyers, even judges and magistrates. And that's why for me, I think if these are the languages of our communication, which are even constitutional, because they are recognized in our constitution, then we must not compromise on the minimum we must get in those languages, because that is a tool of our trade as lawyers. It's not just the knowledge of law. You can have the knowledge of law, but then how do you communicate that knowledge effectively? Both to the litigants and to even the decision maker, the judge or the magistrate. So for me, I will not compromise. The minimum you must attain in a certain, in English or in Kiswahili.
There's something Daktari is raising, because when I look at the old guard, And when I look at the new crop of lawyers, so my age mates and slightly above, they're very different in even how they do their things.
Completely.
They're very different in even how they communicate. And that goes to show that in the training, there's what was imparted to you guys, and there's what we guys found. And it is very different, and it shows. Unfortunately, at the center of it, it is the Kenyans who will suffer. Because you said, if someone cannot draft, so really, what can you do? Because also the quacks that are coming up, kitambo hata tuko tunasikia quack lawyers. It is in recent times that we are hearing, oh, this guy has been practicing and has no certificate. Na law, LSK, under their eyes. So where do they come in all this?
And it has under a very negative image, because now all of us as lawyers are being blanketed as just thieves because of some of those bad elements who, first of all, don't qualify. They don't take the training of law very seriously. They don't take their professionalism. Then it's a means to an end. Yes. How should I hold myself in the eyes of society or before my clients? And this is part of the reason why when it tells people you're a lawyer, I don't know whether you remember the radical surgery of the judiciary by Justice Harold Ringera in 2003. And some of the revelations were that if you, and litigants were saying that if I can buy a judge, why hire a lawyer?
Wow.
It was that serious. And that's how it had degraded the legal profession.
So you guys had to step up now to clean.
And this is part of the reason why ATP came actually into place, because we thought, how do we change this? How do we introduce what is called clinical approach to the study of law? The training. Because before, if you don't do certain subject at the Kenya School, at the Faculty of Law, University of Nairobi, then back in the days, then you go and complete them where? At the Kenya School. In fact, admission to the Kenya School of Law was automatic just before you could do certain subjects at the Kenya School of Law. And I think even the system now, Mwesh, maybe you need to revise your bill. There's a big disconnect. How is it that I can teach students for, say, 6 months, then somebody else administers an exam? And this person who administers an exam has not actually taught them.
Yeah.
So that is a problem, Mwesh. And I think I have not read your bill, and I'm more than happy to read it. Maybe and even give you some comments. I think you need to address that issue. Let the Kenya School of Law or the teacher who teaches these students actually administer the exam themselves. Because, how do you write an exam based on what? What did you teach them? Because I want to examine my students on what I taught them. And
to also gauge.
Yeah, and also gauge that did they actually understand what I told them. So there's that disconnect, and I think that thing really needs to be reversed.
I think that one, there's a bill by Honorable Babu Owino. I believe it addresses that. I just want to respond to a few issues. We have agreed that it is a systemic issue, the degradation of the legal profession. And just to be clear, Dr. said that there are people who went to some funny universities. I went to the University of Nairobi and I graduated. The university, and I graduated with a second class upper. And we have found ourselves in this situation because of systemic issues. These are kids who were born just the other day. They come, they find a system in place that tells them, well, you can go to university and be admitted to study for a law degree. If you have not met the minimum requirement for medicine, you can actually do a bridging course, right? So it is not their making. They have found themselves in this situation. What do we do about them? What is the way forward? Because from where I stand, it is not justifiable or fair that they found a system that told them you can do this. And then now, at some point, the system actually tells them, oh no, you cannot progress beyond that. And we know that in-house lawyers, they're very few. So for an advocate, a young advocate who's not admitted to the bar, perhaps who wants to venture into being an in-house lawyer, the market is nearly not existent. So for any lawyer after that 2012 decision, when someone went to court and the court decided, well, after admission, you can just open your own practice. I remember after admission, I couldn't get a well-paying job to sustain me in Nairobi. So I just opened my small law firm where 90% of the work was pro bono because, of course, I wanted to learn the ins and outs of the practice. let's just pick a scenario where maybe someone got a B minus, right? I have seen people who I know I went to school with who got an A in English, but they're terrible, terrible lawyers. They're terrible drafters. I'm saying these people have actually taken the time.
Also drafting is a skill.
Yes.
Not everybody can draft.
So I'm saying it's not justifiable to say that because they had a B minus or maybe a B, maybe a C plus in English or Kiswahili, they're not able to take the time to learn and build on the wealth of knowledge. And you cannot compare the lawyers at this point with the times of Daktari when he was being admitted. I mean, the legal profession was the circles, they knew each other. You know,
it was
the Chief Justice is a good friend of mine. She tells me, you knew everyone. You knew this one is practicing in Mombasa. This one is, it was a very small circle. We have now over 22,000 registered advocates. So, of course, even managing in terms of the resources that LSK has, management, keeping tabs on who is practicing where. That's why you see we have those issues of quacks coming up from time to time. And of course, yes, we have the bad lawyers, especially advocates who do running down matters. They always take advantage of the clients. I did a legal clinic in Kirinyaga County. And, I was so heartbroken that so many advocates are taking advantage
of their clients,
the literacy levels of their clients. You go to the office, Wakili tells you, or the secretary, you don't even find Wakili. Secretary tells you, oh, the advocate is not in, the money has not been paid. But of course, we know that the money is normally paid to the client's account. But then, of course, they take that advantage to siphon the funds into their own use and refuse to pay the clients. And these people, they have no other means of accessing justice. We have the Advocates Complaints Committee. These people don't go to the ground,
to see what is happening,
they do not,
to deal with the issues.
The voters at the base level, they do not even know that there's somewhere they can complain to. So, of course, I have so many issues that I handle at my office, just from the public, because they know I'm an advocate, from fellow colleagues. And, it breaks my heart when I see these are people that I went to law school with, people that I know, who are taking advantage of literacy level. So, of course, we will always have the bad lawyers, because, like I've said, now we have a population of 22,000. Just at the same with the medical profession, we had that, what's it called? Mugo wa Irimo.
Yes. Wow, he even did
surgeries. He even did surgeries. That guy even had a clinic that is running. To run a clinic, you also need a license. And, you renew every year. Right under our noses. So because of the burgeoning population, these are challenges that we will always encounter from time to time. But what I'm saying is, now imagine the post-COVID lawyers. Just imagine the young lawyers who do not have the advantage of what we benefited from, going to Milimani, doing the filing, seeing how you cross-examine, seeing examination in chief. Imagine the quality of lawyers we will have. The post-COVID lawyers who will now, because now we have gone digital, will never get that advantage and experience of learning firsthand. And it is very different. Daktari can tell you it's very different learning from the physical court and learning virtually. Because learning virtually now, even cross-examination, sometimes you don't even know whether there's someone there telling the witness, no, say this, or writing to them. You don't.
Labda hata amevaa kinyasa na shati.
So the quality, just because we just found ourselves in this situation.
Isn't that then, Mheshimiwa, why we should really protect the legal profession so that we ensure there is quality? Because, before this avalanche of everybody wanting to become an advocate, at least we had a very clear apprenticeship system. You're saying you were paid 12,000. I was paid 3,000. When I was doing my pupillage.
When was that, Daktari? When was that? Because I'm certain you could do shopping. Yeah. You could do shopping with 3,000.
Yeah, I'm talking about 1990, 98, 97.
Now, mine was 2018, so you can imagine.
Yeah. So I was paid 3,000 for my pupillage, but I always accompany my pupil master to court. I will draft, he will review, yes. I will correct, and for me, that was a practical learning. It's actually a clinical approach to learning legal practice, which is not there today. And I think because of that, my suggestion there would be we need to go back if you have to restore the integrity of the legal profession. Even you have to restore perfection. Now, for example, on this question of communication, you see, yes, you're right. There are people who don't know how to draft. But why don't they know how to draft? Because they're not able to communicate. Okay, because if your pleadings are not clear to the judge, to the magistrate, it means actually you haven't communicated your client's case. Your client tells you, this is what happened to me. So it's up to you as a lawyer, armed with that, not necessarily the legal language. These days, even drafting really has been simplified into what we call plain English.
Plain English.
So that it's clear that anybody else, we no
Not
longer
the
use those
jargons.
Latinic terminology because they are not really communicating. Not everybody. And if you read the Constitution of Kenya 2010, when we were drafting it, we adopted plain
English.
English in drafting it because we felt this is the Constitution of the people of Kenya.
We need to understand.
Everybody must be able to read it, at least with certain basic knowledge of English. Then you should be able to read it. So I think communication on Wakili is, for me, is very key, especially in advocacy work.
And you
It
see,
is, and what I said is, there's someone who got an A, but there's just pure communicators. Because I know some of my colleagues who are really terrible drafters, terrible communicators, and there's someone who got a B minus. They have had progressive learning, and they're just good communicators. They can express themselves. They can draft. So for me, I think the basis is the requirement for B plane. Is it based on merit that if you scored a B plane, you're directly a good communicator, you're a good drafter, you're able to pass across your client's message?
It's not necessarily the case, but I think the idea basically is that you must ascertain certain minimums.
to safeguard.
Yeah, and it's a safeguard. Because now if you open it up and say, okay, there's somebody else. I mean, I know many people, even in some villagers who have not gone to school, who are very good communicators. So should we also admit them to the study of law?
Dictionary.
No, have they been?
Let me throw in
have they
now.
studied LLBs
No, but I'm saying you
and they've taken LLMs? You know,
With the introduction of AI, now how do you even come to safeguard that? Because as we have seen, most universities even complain that students are using chat GTP. So with that, with the emergence of quack lawyers, and then there's the introduction of AI, how do you tighten, the belts? Kwa sababu naweza pata hiyo B yangu ama C yangu, but there's progressive learning, and I know uko mbele nitatumia AI, so it's okay.
But maybe before we answer that, I don't know. Maybe I can also say that's probably a question of technology, in my view, and I think we cannot avoid technology anymore.
We cannot.
These days, you don't even need to. Back in the days for us, we used to have keep a folder for precedents, which we developed. These days, you just go to the internet.
Yeah.
I want to do a power of attorney.
You check.
You download it. I want to do a
just
plate.
amend.
I just download it. So it is far from. And I know some lawyers who will never pick a precedent document. They will start from scratch. I prefer that too. If you're telling me I want to do a contract between yourself and Sheria Maina here, I'll sit down with you, what do you want? I'll just do the notes. And then, of course, I know the framework of. For me, I think that comes almost naturally and automatically.
Because you've done it over and over.
And it communicates. No, they're not even about doing it over and over. You see, when you pick an existing president, all you're doing is just changing. You don't own.
Copy paste.
Yes. You're just editing an existing document. You're actually not communicating what you've been told. No. So I think for me, I prefer when I just do my notes. And sometimes even when a client says to me, I want to give you instruction to do a matter for me, I say, okay, fine. Write to me a statement, what is the issue? And that's what I will adapt, because that is the case. That is the case of the client. Those will constitute your pleadings. Because then I will not move away from what you want to communicate. Now, if I'm not a good drafter, then I'll be able, chances are very high I may deviate from what the client has actually told me. And it's important if a client is able to write to you their case, even in the form of a statement, or if they're not able to dictate to somebody. But even if a client dictates to you what their case is, then you must be able to capture exactly what the client is saying, not what you think.
Interpretation, where we interpret vitu zako.
I think it's very important that you raise the question of AI. And, now besides even chat GTP, there's now customized AI.
AI, yes.
So basically you can actually customize AI for your legal profession. And it is a very easy way of drafting anything. You just need to put in the idea of what you want. You get the general narrative. You just put in the specifics. And we must face it, even as a legal profession. But at the end of the day, it requires the human presence and for someone who's qualified to argue on your behalf. So these are changing times, which is why for me that minimum requirement of B plane does not hold water anymore. And of course, if we really want to curtail and if we really want to control the numbers in the legal profession, let us do it at the very base level, university entry level. It does not
What
make
is the
sense.
minimum entry?
C+.
C+. Okay.
In other jurisdictions, you find that
not too low.
not too low. Yes.
Law is not a C+. C+ to university, yes. But
No,
not-
SSP, yes. SSP and private universities, they're taking C+.
It's a C+. Yes, Daktari, that's how low.
That is
We've
how,
gone.
that is where we are, you know? And like I've said, even for medics now, they're bridging courses. So if you do not have an A in or A minus in chemistry, biology, combination and physics,
You can bridge.
You go do a bridging course and then you're admitted for the SSP program. And every university is actually offering that. And we must face these times, which is why I have said that I have a motion that is pending on the floor for the higher education, but to match the needs of the market to what is being admitted at the entry level, and also to give information to applicants who want to join university. This is how marketable your course is. For example, if you're going to study geospatial engineering, if you're going to do statistics, economic and statistics, you know, and that is a course that wasted so many good brains at Kenyatta University when we were joining campus at the time, because it is not marketable. The demands of a changing market, technology. Now we have to really ensure that we cater for these young people so that they're not frustrated adults. You know, we have now people who are walking around angry at the system that they can now not get admitted for the ATP program. Well, really, from the instance of it at joining level, they were not aware. They did not have that information. So it is very important for the Higher Education Board and the Ministry of Education to also ensure that there is proper communication and data out there, that if you're going to study medicine, these are the demands of the market. You know, a 40% absorption rate, 20%. If you're going to study law, this is how the market looks like. So these students at the high school level, because that is where we apply for university.
Yes.
From the time, I believe it is still the same system.
It is.
That is where you apply for uni. So you have that information and you're able to actually decide that this is
From
what
the
I want
onset,
to undertake. And you know, you have the full, we call it full disclosure in law. You have the full disclosure from the government. If I really want law and I can see it's crowded, well, if it doesn't end up too well for me, I had the full information. So for me, it is systemic failures of education system. And now we cannot hold these young people accountable. We have to give them a way forward.
All right. So, Mwesh, how are you going to ensure that your bill will uphold professionalism and not water it down further as we are having a conversation here?
I think the provision that, there's a bit of misconception on what the bill provides. It actually doesn't do away with the requirement for B plane. It just recognizes progressive learning and says that in alternate of that, if there's someone who has a degree from a university recognized in Kenya, and maybe they have an LLM, they can be considered for admission to the ATP program. So it has absolutely nothing to do with the professionalism, because they're people who, professionalism has a lot to do with character even, what informs you as a person. If I am going to actually abuse a client's money, or maybe siphon a client's money from the client's account, it does not mean that it is because I got a B or
it has
an A.
nothing to
it
do
has
with your
a lot to
studies,
do
with
with
who
your
you
character.
are
And let me just
integrity.
really appreciate the 12,000 that I earned, because I know my people master could be watching, and I would not want her at any given point to ever feel that I am complaining about it. I'm just putting it out there, the situation of young lawyers, and I really learned a lot from her. I mean, I don't think actually I would be here if it were not for her, because I accompanied her to court every day. I had one pair of shoes that were very noisy because, I couldn't afford much.
Jaja anakusikia kutoka
Jaja
huko
anisikia
nje.
kutoka huko. And then we had to do filing at Milimani, physical filing. So you had to walk, unapanda juu, unatembea, alafu unaambiwa sijui hakuna receipt, sijui enda umetumwa room gani. So now my shoes were so noisy. Every time I'd go, I was so stressed up. I'm like, goodness. I'm making noise for everyone, and everyone knows that I am here. Njeri Maina is here. But I really appreciate that, because it taught me so much. And it helped me even be able to run my own
law firm.
And also venture into politics, just get to know the Nairobi life, because I was brought up in Kirinyaga, studied there. So it really set me up for this life, and I really appreciate it. It was a learning for me.
Yeah,
It was
something
the
I think maybe you need to unpack for our listeners.
Yeah.
When you say progressive learning, what exactly do you mean?
We mean
just unpack it for listeners.
No, we mean people who have maybe started with a degree, and then now they've done an LLM, or maybe people who have a first degree, and then they've been admitted now to study law. Yes.
So I studied something else.
What is the relationship
with the B?
With professional undertaking in matters law?
Sorry?
Because I feel there's lack of clarity. Yes, you're talking about progressive learning, fair enough. But at the same time, you also used saying law is a profession, which means there must be some ethos and pathos on how you conduct yourself in that profession, because there has to be formal qualification. And for you to be able to undertake your profession, rightfully so, you must be a member of that profession with certain standing. You shouldn't have any question mark as to how you arrived there in the first place. And that's why I think, for me, it's still important not to just open up the gate, because we will end up with the problems we were discussing earlier of quack lawyers, bad lawyers, and all that. So I will jealously protect any profession so that you can create confidence with members of the public who actually want that service. Because the danger there is you might actually open it up, and then everybody else comes.
What I'm saying is that we already have, and it is public information, we already have quack lawyers, we already have bad lawyers. And professionalism has a lot to do with character. What informs you as a person. We have very well learned people who do the short changing.
It's also the training in that profession.
Yes.
How much of the values of that profession do you actually inculcate in yourself, and how do you behave? Just like, we know that you politicians, also now elected politicians, they've got bad politicians. But those guys who don't participate in motions in parliament, they come sign in committee meetings and just
disappear.
And all that. They don't even represent their constituents where they came from, and we saw that during the passing of the Finance Act.
Yes.
There are people who just walked away, and they actually failed in their duty as representatives of the people. They failed in
legislating also.
But you see, in a profession, I don't think politics is a profession as such. But law, for me, is a profession because there are certain training you must undertake. There are certain formal qualifications you must take. There are certain, you must behave yourself in a certain way. So that, for example, do I represent my wife or my brother if they are accused of illegal? A good lawyer will tell you, no, I'm too close, I'm too emotional.
Absolving myself.
Yes. Do I represent, say, my very, very close friend? I mean, I know lawyers who will not touch a rape case or a murder case because it will go against their conscience. Although in proper professional training of a lawyer, even the devil deserves representation.
True.
Yeah? So that you cannot now say, if you try to bring in your own beliefs into a profession, again, there you're actually beginning to fail as a professional because
you're not being professional.
Don't bring emotions into the doing of your work. So I think for me, that is where I find a little bit lack of clarity.
I think
when you talk about a profession, we know there are certain ethos we must adhere to. Regardless, you cannot be emotional. You cannot be part of your client's case. Especially when, for example, I know lawyers, when they lose a case, they become so emotional, they start insulting magistrates or judges. And that's not professional conduct.
And do you remember, Akili, in all this, and we're talking about professionalism, remember, you people almost hold lives. Because if you're representing criminal lawyers, for example, someone and they go to jail for life. For your lack of professionalism or your lack of qualification, maisha ya huyo mtu imeishia hapo labda.
Yeah, or you can just poorly defend an obvious case.
Yes.
I mean, you probably could not mitigate. You couldn't maybe do a proper cross-examination because your knowledge in law is wanting.
Very limited. Yeah.
Is wanting. So many lawyers, there are a couple of many lawyers who will tell you, I don't take any brief. That's not my area of interest. Like for me, I will hardly do a running down matter. I wouldn't, because I've not practiced that area of law. Accident claims and all that, I don't. But my bringing matters, constitution, commercial law, civil, something that I practice every other day. So I'll be comfortable. But a good professional lawyer will tell you, no, that's not my area of interest. Can I refer you to
someone else?
But some lawyers will just take up a matter because I want to do my fee note. Or there are those who just prolong a case that you could easily conclude because you want to make fees out of a client. Now, that's not professionalism. You're not being guided by certain ethics because
you're there for the money.
For the money.
Let me respond to that. I think you raised the issue of professionalism, and I told you that we are only adding that if maybe you've done a degree from a recognized university, an LLM, you can now be admitted to the ATP program. But we're not changing the entire structure of the admission process from the pupillage that lawyers undertake, which is mandatory, prior to admission. And that is where you actually learn a lot on the practice of law, on how you're supposed to carry yourself as a lawyer, because what we learn, even the units at the KSL, it is only the theory. The practice of it, the ins and outs of it, how you even approach issues of mediation, if you want perhaps to mitigate your client's case, how to give a client a proper professional legal opinion. Because sometimes you look at the evidence and you're like, this one, we have maybe probability of winning 40%. Of course, you won't find a client and then tell them we are going to win this case. That's not professional, because you have to look at the evidence at hand, what they tell you, and also be able to make a judgment call on the probability of winning or losing the case, to even just prepare them. And as you endeavor to do your best as a legal representative to make sure that you win the case for them. So that out of it and the aspect of professionalism is something that we're not taking away from the profession. What I am saying is, just because, and this is just logical, because I had a B- in English, does not mean that I will not be professional, does not mean that I will now be siphoning, running down clients' monies. Those things, the ethos, as much as they're built up, it's a build-up of learning and things you pick along life, a lot of that is really informed by character. And like Daktari has said, they are good and bad politicians. And they're very well learned and actually very, very articulate politicians who don't even bother with the process of representation on the floor, legislation and all that. Not because they're not learned or qualified professionals in their own right, but because their ethos... They're not informed by the principles of representing the people on a scale that is wholesome. So for me, getting a B-, it doesn't take away from the professionalism of, and there's no justification, because I do not see how, if I got just a lower grade than the minimum requirement, and I go through the entire process. So if I had taken medicine as a first degree, or maybe if I had taken admin or finance or something else as a first degree, did law as a second degree, and then now want to join ATP, I do the whole KSL course, then I sit for Council for Legal Education, I get my 9 Ps, I go for pupillage, and then I apply to be admitted as an advocate. It does not take away from the entire learning process. We're just saying that if someone has gone through that process, let them be admitted, considered for admission for ATP if they want to join, because it is not mandatory either. And then they can be evaluated for the 9 Ps and see whether they qualify to be admitted to the bar.
What I'm thinking is that, you see, Mwesh, I think you're okay, whereas you mean well in your approach, but I think you also run the risk of opening a Pandora's box, because if I come and say, listen, I got a C+ in English, But yeah, that was just exam, but I'm articulate. Then where do you stop? Maybe, I don't know whether the qualification to do law has since changed. I haven't really looked at it. Because I think during our time, you have to acquire certain points in a certain cluster of subjects. Once you have that cluster of subjects together, then you automatically get although that back then it was very competitive.
Oh, it has changed. Universities, it has changed.
So you see, maybe we need to go back to the cluster approach.
Yes.
That for you to do law, you must attain a certain points in this cluster.
Yes.
This is the cluster that will qualify you to do law. So that it can also accommodate, if I got a B minor, say in English,
yes,
but in the other cluster subjects,
yes,
I got this minor and then I've met the points for law. I think that would be
actually,
a better compromise.
And I have no issue with that. I have no issue with that. My issue is that we brought these students here. They're caught up in a quagmire because of systemic failures. It is not their doing at all. It is not their doing. The government licensed other institutions to offer the law degree without even a cluster.
But Mwesh, you see, your bill, if I hear you correctly,
yes,
is not addressing those systemic failures. You are saying, let's make an exception. Maybe you then should look at your bill and see, okay, how does this bill now address those systemic failures? What are those systemic failures? Because I think the best approach, like I just suggested, is we go back to the cluster approach, so that you don't condemn me. I have a desire to do law.
Yes.
Don't condemn me just because I got a C+
in English,
or even in English. But in all the other cluster subjects, I got the right subjects, and I've met the points for an LLB. Maybe that's the way to go. But also importantly, what are these systemic failures and how do we address it through your bill?
Yeah, but then also these students are already here, right? We're not dealing with people who now have not entered. We already have a backlog of over 3,000 students.
But I think it should be for posterity also. I think Dr. is talking for posterity.
Yes,
because
and I do
we cannot
get him.
keep curing
the
disease. We have to go to the root cause of it.
We have to, but I'm saying as we cure the root cause of it, and that's why I've said I even have a motion on the floor that most likely, we start with a motion to measure even
the reactions,
the reactions and the build-up of what we will propose in a bill, so that we can ensure that from the very entry level, we have that cluster that Dr. is talking about. But what do we do with these students? It's like saying, we want to have a preventive measure for, let's say, maybe a terminal illness like cancer. But then there's someone who's at stage 4. What do we do with them?
Curative.
They're these students already. They've done their LLM. They've done their LLB, LLM. What do we do with them? There were 3,000 students. They even have a lobby group. And when you speak to them and you see the frustration, you get it firsthand. Unaona ile tunasema kwa ground. They come to my office basically nearly every day to just ask Mheshimiwa what is happening. I've had various conversations, tried to really push it through JLAC and just see how we can just get them out of this quagmire, because they are caught up in this quagmire where they cannot make a living. They're frustrated Kenyans. And Dr. here has also highlighted on the disconnect between KSL and CLE. And I remember we had an issue with the percentage of evaluation, the passing.
I think CLE should be disbanded, if you ask me.
There are conversations around that.
I don't see the purpose it serves. I think we should just focus on the Kenya School of Law and probably just, they're already structured in the Kenya School of Law. What is CLE's role, honestly?
True. And then we need to have this conversation.
This is another duplication of another institution on matters legal. Let the Kenya School of Law handle this.
And we need to have a conversation of course, the entire system of protecting the very integral professions like medicine, law, legal practice, But, we really opened up this space. What do we do about it?
I would rather have the Kenya School of Law work either closely with the Law Society of Kenya. Those are already 2 institutions that regulate actually matters legal. KSL is just, CLE is just another addition to, I'd honestly, it's a waste of money, if you ask me.
Okay, I think we have discussed exhaustively this matter. And Mheshimiwa, we are glad to continue this conversation offline. And Dr. is here, so I am sure he has input. Yeah. So moving on, Dr. Presidential term limit.
Yeah.
tunaona mtu wa devki kidogo, he has muddied the waters. And Mwesh, now remove your advocate cap, wear your political cap.
I have wear it. Haraka sana.
So let me give you guys a background about this Narendra Raval. I don't know whether you remember sometimes back that Narendra Raval was actually accused of stealing electricity by KPLC.
Yes.
Sometimes back. And for some reason, he somehow got off the hook. Actually, his background is very interesting. He came to Kenya as a preacher.
What?
Yep. Yeah.
That part I didn't know.
I'm also finding out now.
That part I didn't know.
For the longest time, he was a preacher.
Okay.
And somehow, I don't know, got himself into business. Then his first scandal was stealing electricity from KPLC. And I don't know what happened to that case. Then the second interesting thing about Narendra was, remember, there's a time just before this new administration came, he was the only importer of steel who was exempted from paying duty.
Yes.
Yeah. Today, as we speak, I think he's the sole supplier of steel for the affordable housing.
So that's the history.
That's background. So when you hear a man like that suck up to the president, even to make such outrageous proposals that President William Ruto should be in office for 25 years, then don't be surprised. He feeds from the system. And for me, the question that must be asked, even just post this question, and we discussed it yesterday at length at Citizen TV. So what is it, maybe Mheshimiwa, but are you in UDA?
Yes, I am.
Yes, she is.
Yeah,
So I will be.
So you can speak for the
Atasaidia
government.
kujibu.
Atasaidia kujibu. Because one of the questions that people are asking, even when this man makes this outrageous suggestion, because of course he hasn't read the Constitution of Kenya and the background to how we arrived at
two-term
two-term
limits. Yeah.
So people are asking, and actually I think for me, he's exposing the president, he's putting the president in very bad light. Yesterday, Joel Nyotu, the senator from Murang'a, really had a very difficult time defending the president. His response was, the president has not said he wants to. But then, when a close
ally,
an associate of the president saying this, are they testing the waters?
Yeah.
Most likely,
to see our reactions.
Most likely they are testing the waters. So now the question that has emerged is, okay, and it's made now Kenyans to compare President William Ruto with other transformational presidents, say, in the region. And one of the examples that was put on the table was Kagame, for example.
Yes.
President Paul Kagame of Rwanda, after the 1994, there are certain things that Kagame actually did that are very transformational to the Rwandan society. For example, he said that we cannot pretend that genocide never happened in Rwanda. And he created the Genocide Memorial or Museum. And they are still collecting skulls. But if you compare Rwanda, say, and I know it's a small country, small economy compared to ours, but in terms of progression, in terms of transformation of their society, they have done pretty well. I mean, I've gone to Rwanda a couple of times, and especially after the genocide, there are times you could go to Rwanda, you could not even get an ATM, you couldn't transact, there was no internet, whatever. But today, Rwanda is sparkling clean.
It's the Singapore of Africa.
Yes. So you can say there is transformation in a country like that. Macky Sall of Senegal, when he came, he made some very interesting decisions, whether to disband the Senate because he does not see the point. He got to Botswana. So there are many examples that are now being bundled. So the question then back home, why would you even suggest William Ruto stays another 5? In fact, somebody yesterday said, do we even need him for the next 5 years? Actually, should he even finish his Mheshimiwa atajibu mtu wa UDA? So do we even need him for another 5? I mean, do we even need him to complete his 5 years? Because what is it that we can now associate the president with something transformational that has changed?
Since
if we go to, Mheshimiwa spoke earlier around mambo kwa ground. I'm sure mambo kwa ground, she knows hustlers are complaining that we were duped. We no longer talk about the plan. We no longer talk about the hustler. We no longer talk about the wheelbarrow, the mamamboga, and all that. So what is this special thing that will make us even entertain this conversation that we can even amend our constitution? Of course, that's complete idiotic of Narendra to say that. Kenya is actually pissed off with, and we know that this is a man probably who even has multiple nationalities. I'm sure during election time, maybe either he's in England or Canada or
anatuacha na shida zetu,
India or wherever. Kenya ni shamba too for him and the rest of them. So that's the question that's now emerging. And I don't think it's really even a subject we should be discussing right now. And why do I say that? Because I think Kenya today, we are staring into a number of crises that I think, in my view, we should be discussing. And Mushiu, I'm sure, will tell you, even from our own Kirinyaga County, there are certain things that people are concerned with, certainly not term limits. For example, we have a health crisis now, doctor's crisis.
Yeah,
a doctor's strike.
Week 4.
Which we'll discuss. I'm hoping we will.
It's going to about, I don't know, day 43, or thereabout. So we have the doctor's crisis. We have a crisis in education in our country. We have got cash crunch on public schools, food security and insecurity. I come from the northern part of Kenya, where the sound of a gun is like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Meanwhile, our government thinks in its wisdom or lack of it, let's send 1,000 police officers to Haiti. Yet we cannot even fix the problem in Baringo, the panga-wielding gangs in Mombasa, Mitahani here, my area MP, Elachi was telling us the other day, she can't even try to walk around Kilimani in the evening because of
the insecurity.
You've got theft of public money. You've got the control of budget, which actually exposed a lot of theft of public money. This is a crisis because it is denying Kenyan services. Those are things that we should be discussing. We have national debt that's now ballooning. We have got failed system institutions. We have ministers, for example, like Kindiki Kithure, who has declared Nyaya House as a crime scene. So many things. And of course, we have got what is this other point I was trying to make? Anyway, and we have a very irresponsive and unresponsive parliament. And I'm sure can explain that or maybe respond to people. So if you ask me, if you look at all these, and this is just about a few of the issues that actually touch on Kenyans, on national interest, education, health, poverty. Poverty levels are very high right now in this country. People cannot afford. Mwisha will tell you our WhatsApp number probably doesn't breathe because people will ask you, sometimes people ask you as little as 100 bob, 200 bob. You ask yourself, sasa nikipatia mtu 200 bob, anaenda kununua nini? Yeah. So those, for me, I think, are the issues that we should be talking about in this country, including, for example, say climate change, agriculture, fake fertilizers,
We saw what happened in Senate.
Exactly, fake fertilizers. This is actually almost tantamount to genocide by state. If you actually give people fake fertilizers, the consequence of it is that you're likely to starve them because there'll be no food. Mass starvation. So instead of talking about these term limits, I think we should talk about these issues that actually preserve our integrity as a people, as a country. For me, when we promoted the Punguza Mizigo Amendment Bill in 2019, we had actually proposed a one-term term limit of 7 years.
Why? What was your thinking?
And we justified. In fact, that's a very good question. If you look at the 2 term limits that we have now, hardly are we even in year 3. You can see the president is already campaigning. You can see alignments towards 2027. So the second 2 years, the president is busy pleasing because we are now going into the second year of KK's presidency. You can see it's about alignment politically. Can I compromise members of the opposition so that we vote along? You can see Baba has been pocketed already. He's being told takupatia kazi.
You see,
ndio unyamaze wacha kusumbua sisi. So maybe President William Ruto will start working next year for only 1 year. And he will find his tray so full of things he was not able to do because he was busy doing politics, traveling for the last 2 years. This last 2 years will be campaign for 2027. Our proposal was, we give you 7 years, 1 term of 7 years, okay? So that you know you're not coming back. You have no time to play politics. You have no time to please anybody. Even if you have to play politics in terms of seeking consensus in the House, but it's for purposes of promoting your policies for the benefit of Kenyans. You do your 7 years and you go. The 7 years is as good as 8 years anyways. It's only 1 year because the election must be held on the 5th year.
Yes.
Yeah, on the 5th year. So meaning you don't necessarily serve a whole 1
10
year.
years,
anyway. Not 10 years. So more or less, you're almost doing, with 7 years, honestly, you can do a lot. Knowing very well that I'm just doing my 1 term.
And I'm out.
I'm out.
But you see, Daktari, then what happens in that case also, remember, like you've said, there are good politicians, there are bad politicians. So there's someone who will campaign tooth and nail to come in knowing that I have 7 years. So ninaingia hapo and steal all I can or not care to do the work.
But see, we are taking care of that in the Constitution. And Wakili here can also confirm to you. It's just that we have had a parliament that is purely commercial. Because if you had a parliament that really cares about the Constitution, they could even try an impeachment, motions of censure against a sitting president. They are all there provided for in the Constitution, but has never been exercised because elected members of parliament are very reluctant to call government into account. And when they try to call government into account, it's for purpose of just political competition or to try and belittle the government of the day. There's really no sound engagement and debate.
The oversight
you don't have always to
lacking.
disagree with government. You can always agree with government when the policies are right and serving your people. It's not always about a tug of war or fighting. Like one of my biggest misgivings of the so-called opposition is when they walked out of parliament during the voting of the finance Act,
bill,
and their refusal to participate, for example, in committee meetings. Then how do we know actually that you are presenting your views? So those structures are there. And I think if we can continue, even if we try that, even if it fails, over time it will create a culture of constitutionalism. For, if you remember, during the Moi era, you couldn't insult the president. Today, you go to social media.
Left, right,
Our
and
president
center.
being insulted. Uhuru was so insulted until he took off from Twitter back then. So the society is growing in terms of, and even the politicians are now becoming tolerant of freedoms of speech, So I think it's not all lost. And I'm just thinking, how do we then ensure the presidency performs and not just focus on politics of re-election? Because for me, it's about how do I ensure that I perform or I deliver my political promises during campaign. For me, that's very important.
Okay, Mwish, presidential
She's
term
raised
limit.
quite a number of issues.
Yes.
And first, let me address the issue of parliament that does not seem, as he said, to be able to stand up to the executive. And it is very unfortunate that our political system is purely based on parties. And we've had conversations from time to time as opposed to information on ideology. Perhaps maybe let's say if I want to join UDA, I'm not joining because I believe in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, I believe in the ideologies the party is propagating. I'm joining because it is a vehicle that is popular in my region to take me to parliament. And it is our socio-engineering. It is not a making of the politician. It is a societal issue that we have. And you find that we are caught up in a loop where once you get into parliament, you're thinking about the next election because our politics is also money-based.
And it's so vicious.
It is about how much I will be dishing in 2027. You find that they're very good legislators, by the way, who went home because, one, they did not have the right party. Two, perhaps maybe they didn't have enough chums
didn't give
to
the
give to the
handouts,
people.
yeah.
So it is a collective issue. And maybe perhaps we need to see how the Zoomers can because I think our generations, millennials and the rest,
we gave up.
We've become ni kama samaki mkunje angali mbichi.
Become complacent.
It's just we've passed. It's overtaken by events. But it is a socio-engineering issue that we have. So these systemic issues that come up and are highlighted now, the face of National Assembly, both Parliament and Senate and the executive, they come from the people. It is actually the people who exercise democracy to vote for these people. And you've given an example of Kagame. And we really even sometimes have to have the honest conversation. Is it the democracy is no longer working for us? Is it the best form of government that we should propagate? Because if you look, I went to a country like Bahrain. It is an autocracy, and they're doing so well things. Hospitals, education, everything is functioning. You go to Rwanda, it is actually now more marketable than Kenya.
Yeah.
Per se. So we really have to have that conversation on the way forward. Is democracy working for us? Because I think and I believe that we copied so much from the West. We just really took and applied here without really thinking whether this is a societal structure that would work for us.
We copy a lot from the West because the West is functioning, but ours is not functioning. So what did we copy?
We drew the line at implementation,
we just,
accountability.
The systems, and the systems that now, US, they have the Senate, they have the Congress, we have now devolution that is now even a very heavy burden on Kenyans and an avenue even for more people to loot, because basically it is a looting spree in government, and that is a fact.
We devolved corruption.
And it is unfortunate. We did not devolve services. We devolved healthcare. But if you go to hospitals which are managed by county governments, they have no infrastructure. They have no medicine. They do not have the basic amenities that they need to even implement SCHIF. So we will have SCHIF that is supposed to cater for the local mwananchi, but you go to hospital, they tell you, no, we don't have the meds, you have to go outside and buy. We really need to have that conversation. And then our people are not enlightened enough. We have refused to actually do civic education. We sit in hotels and have those conversations, but kule mashinani, people they're not empowered enough to know their rights and to know how to demand for them. I have a personal initiative when I go to Kirinyaga County. I just ask a random person when I'm giving the Women Economic Empowerment checks. I just ask them, how much do you think the county MP gets? They tell me 200 million. How much do you think governor gets? They say 300 million. Your MP, they say maybe 100 million. I tell them I actually have 7 million per constituency. The governor has 6.5B per financial year. Your MP has your 200 mic, or maybe 150 or 160 mic, depending on the constituency and the number of wards. So we have a very disempowered society that they don't even have we have really disempowered our people. They don't even have the capacity to ensure that they vote leaders based on merit. We have people who are elected purely because of the party wave, right? And what that does to parliament, of course, weakens it. I was having a conversation with someone and saying, I wish that, people just came in as independent candidates. You have your own
then you would do the job.
ethos and everything, then you're able to do the job. Because, and Daktari will tell you, you have a party leader. You do not have your own party. So you actually do not run your own agenda in government. You are part of a system. You have to align. And even in developed democracies like USA, the only difference is that their parties are actually informed by ideologies.
Yes.
So if you're a Democrat, you know what informs you. If you're leftist or right-wing, you know what informs you. Independent, you know what informs you. But we do not have that here in Kenya. So of course we have weak institutions. We have a judiciary that is not independent per se. So they cannot stand up to the government of the day and be able to get away with it. We have IEBC. That we still have the quagmire of being caught up of who will sit in the selection panel, because people feel that you have to bring Mtuyako to the table so that you also have maybe a way to maneuver in the next election. The presidential term limit, very unfortunate. But what I want to say is there's a member of parliament who had proposed that. I remember.
Yes, when
immediately
you guys
after
just
we got
came
elected.
In. Yes.
And we had a PG with the president. And he actually made it very clear and said that we are putting him in a very awkward situation. And he declared that he has no interest. And I'm speaking because I was in attendance on that PG, he has no interest to amend the term limit from the 10-year term that is provided by the Constitution. And we even know the popular initiative that had been introduced by the former president, just wanting, and we have this thing of wanting to change the system, but we're not...
Which popular initiative is that?
The BBI initiative. They claimed it was a popular initiative. Of course, it was ruled that it wasn't. But you see, they had said that they brought it under Article...
I was involved in the litigation. It wasn't a popular
Yeah, they say they had introduced it under Article 256 and 257, claiming that it was a popular initiative. And it was not. The Supreme Court decided it was not. Because the president does not have the right to drive the agenda and be the face of a popular initiative. So we have these issues... And we really don't change the things up our ground.
As we speak,
we move the angles. Yes.
If the president said that in your PG that he has no interest, then why doesn't he correct such information, especially when he said in his presence?
No, he even spoke about it.
No, I'm saying
after
Narendra made that proposal. I think for me it's important for the president to be able to correct that immediately. Because right now, the failure for
everyone would be reading things into it.
Yeah. I understand that, and I do agree with you.
The failure for him to correct that immediately is why this thing is now gaining currency, and it's annoying many Kenyans in the light of the things that I've just enumerated here as the things that concerns them. I think for me, is a question of leading. The president should be able not to entertain certain crap like those ones.
And remarks.
Such remarks, he should be able to correct it.
I think because he addressed it that first time when it was raised, if you recall, the president actually addressed it. And it is on record.
It's not Narendra only who said it. There was also the MP for Fafi.
See, that's the guy.
No, that is the guy that I'm
about.
saying. Yes. And when Fafi spoke about it, the president even spoke about it and say that he had no intention at all whatsoever, and that we are putting him in a very awkward situation, and told all members of parliament, Senate and the National Assembly that he has no interest whatsoever, and no one should purport to speak for him in regard to that. But what do we say? We have democracy, we have freedom of speech. I cannot stop you from saying you want Daktari to be your next president in 2027. I cannot. So perhaps maybe the president missed to address it at that point, or the juncture when what is that guy called? Yeah, that guy. When that guy, and that's a hard name for Kikuyu. It's very hard. When that guy brought it up, perhaps he missed to address it at that juncture. But he actually even publicly addressed that issue when Fafi raised it, and it was even on the papers on what he said at the PG. So from where I stand, he has talked about the debt issue. Yes, we do have a debt issue. We have a high unemployment rate. The inflation rate is now at least going down. We've seen the dollar is now at 130. So we're hoping that things will stabilize. We really can't have a negative mentality all the time. And I normally say there's no popular sitting government. Even when Uhuru Kenyatta was the president, people were complaining day and night. When Kibaki was the president, I remember he was even called General Kigwoya. It means, he's
Muoga.
Muoga. And then now, way after now, he's left there like, You remember when Expresso was, introduced and people were like,
Atukuli Barabara.
Atukuli Barabara, we don't even want this. Now people are like, this thing, if you need to go to the airport, very efficient. So of course, we will never have a sitting government that will ever be popular. We have seen the president has come up with various initiatives.
If a government does the right thing, Mheshimiwa, there is nothing that will stop it from being popular. And I think one of the things that the KK administration and their stalwarts, like Mheshimiwa Maina here, are not getting right, when we critique you or when we call you out, it's not like we have a negative image of the government. We actually want you to succeed. Because if government succeeds, all of us are happy. And see, what people also are saying, Mheshimiwa, is, you came with a plan. You said you are going to do ABCD. We're just reminding you. In your plan, you said you will do this.
And we've actually started actualizing on the plan.
There's nothing wrong with people reminding. And when you are reminded, just because you have not done it, now you turn it around to say, people are being negative. No, it is our role to remind you. And just like even you represent the county of Kirinyaga, not the UDA as such. Yes, UDA sponsored you. But your real clients are actually the people of Kirinyaga.
Yes.
And by extension, as the people of Kenya, because you're our legislator. So,
And I have no issue with that. No, I have not said mnatuonea. What I have said is that
No,
people
but I can see
will.
it's a common thread now with any UDA member of parliament or people in government. Yeah? And they always find it very difficult to defend government, which I understand because, again, they're not doing the right thing as they promised. Because they painted a very rosy picture, what will happen to you, Mama Mboga, wheelbarrow. But allow us to remind you because, you may not remind yourself because you are in that. You're in that
You said you're too close to the issue.
You're too close
And
to
we
the
have
issue.
no issue, by the way, with being reminded.
You're emotionally attached to
You know,
the administration.
now, Daktari, if you give me a chance, I'll respond to you. We have no issue with being reminded, by the way. But what I'm saying is that it is very easy to find fault with the sitting government of the day. Because at the end of the day, people believe, or rather, we have, we have a system of governance where we sit back and watch. We wait for the government. And we forget that we also supposed to be participating in governance issues and policies. Just go even at the local level. I don't mean here in Nairobi. Here in Nairobi, people are empowered. They're
well-versed.
They're well-versed even with issues. They are informed on what is happening in this ministry and the other. Just go mashinani. And a large population of Kenyans, even that mere public participation, people no longer attend public participation. I remember we were having something on the alcoholic bill and proposals that they will make. And people actually come and they tell you they need to be paid to actually now attend a public participation. We have a society that's just not participating in governance, and that is where we lose it. Because at the end of the day, we say that the Constitution says supreme power belongs to the people. So it is actually the people who we're only mere representatives. If my people wanted to summon me, they can hold a meeting there and summon me, and I will go. Because at the end of the day, they are the ones who have given me the mandate to represent them. But then our people do not want to participate in governance issues and policies, things that affect them. You find even sometimes elites.
Why is that?
No, I already said that our people are disempowered. They're disempowered in regard to that. They do not have even the right information to come and say, you governor, you have 6.5B. Tell us what you have done for this financial year. County MP, you have 7 million. Tell us what you have done. I actually take it upon myself to explain to them, this is your money, 20% went here, 20% went here, 30% we did scholarships, 30% we're giving to women economic empowerment. But not many, actually, very few politicians do that. But so they don't even have the right information to come and ensure that they push the government of the day.
Mwesh, those issues that Daktari raised?
That is actually what I want to address. Just allow me to finish. We have the subsidized fertilizer program. In the main budget last year, we put in 5B for that program. I know we have issues right now, which are being addressed by the government. We have the SCHIF that we launched to just cater for healthcare. It was a very brilliant decision. Daktari, at least we can agree to disagree. And
what was wrong with NHIF?
It is okay. It is okay.
Compare it with NHIF. So let's educate people.
Yes.
You're now promoting what you call sustainable health.
Yes.
Insurance
fund.
Yes.
And we had NHIF.
We had NHIF where everyone was supposed to be contributing.
So then why don't you educate the people of Kenya? Give us a comparison.
Yes.
What is making SHIF
better than NHIF? The comparative analysis.
Yeah, because that is not clear, because all you guys are just changing names, just like you changed from Jubilee to now UDA.
No, it isn't. It isn't.
Before that,
in NHIF we had the tire from 500, right? But now we have a tire of 300. Where actually, if you're earning more, Daktari, you will be paying more for healthcare to cater for the person who is not able to pay for healthcare. So that provision will cater and cushion a lot of people who are hustlers, by the way. The people you say, the mamambogas, Because of course for them, they are not able.
Have you taken a walk to Kenyatta National Hospital?
Yes, I have. I have actually been.
When was the last time you had Kenyatta
been
National
treated
Hospital?
there? I think 2 months ago.
My proposal is motion, and maybe I want you to sponsor a motion. You're in Parliament. I think sponsor a motion that says that all elected public officers must use public facilities on matters health.
So that we upscale the facility.
The facilities. And
so
you
that
see,
if you know you're going to Kenyatta, Mbagathi, or whatever, level 4,
Mama
level
Lucy.
whatever, I'm sure they will ensure there's medication, the doctors are taken care of.
It is clean.
It's clean, whatever. But you see, you probably have now a medical cover of about 20 million, if I'm not wrong.
no, it is not 20 million.
10
Hey,
million, I think 10 million.
Daktari, you want to roast me. Yani, he just wants to finish me. Amenipeana tu.
No, I'm exaggerating. But I know it's about upwards of 10
Yeah.
million.
Yeah. It's a good amount.
Yes, a good amount. I mean, come on, inpatient. That's big. And of course, you have the option, you can fly to South Africa, India, even Europe for treatment. But the mamambogas you are saying, you're looking after through this SHIF, in those public hospitals where there are no medicine. I mean, and in fact, earlier on, I wanted to respond to your question that it was a mistake to devolve health. No, it was not. Actually, every service in this country must be devolved.
Closer to the people.
Closer to the people. In fact, it should be devolved even to the ward level so that you actually get that service at the very level. Because that's where Kenya is. Because Mwesh, what is Kenya? Kenya is not at Nairobi or national. What is the national? The national in Kenya is the 47 counties of Kenya, the 290 constituencies, the 1450 wards. That's where the people of Kenya are. So if I'm not able to get service, why are you holding a service here at national for what? It should go down there. I mean, in other countries that are successful, I remember when, during my student days in England, I never knew who my area member of parliament was. But I interacted with the local authority.
Yes, the local governments are very strong.
Local authority. And the local authority only had almost like 3 key issues. Transport, bus, train. Are they on time? Because they facilitate for you to participate in an economy. Firefighting, garbage collection. Things to do with electricity, water, those are non-issues, those are automatic. And we interacted with services at that local level. So he did not even care whether unatuma ng'ombe ama mbuzi to be a member of parliament. Nobody cared. Because their role was very simple. Call government to account, legislate, and represent. Those 3 things. So I think we should, let's not say health is a mistake. No, it's a question of management.
It's not even health. I said it was a mistake to just bring in devolution. Because if you look at the recurrent expenditure of devolution, if you look at whether people are actually getting those services. Now that we devolved healthcare, right? We just moved management to be at the local level. But are people actually getting the medicine and the treatment when they go to the facilities? They're not.
We have a supervisor at the national level called the CS and the PS, and above that, the government of the day headed by the president. You see, what is lacking, Mwesh, I can't remember, this book, it's called, I think, Capital Flight, by some Latin America guy. You must be able to follow the shilling. And that's what he says. You must follow the dollar. Yeah. You see, what is lacking right now is accountability at both levels. Both at the lower level, that is the devolved unit, and at the national level. Because today, if things go wrong in this country, it's the president that takes the hit.
Yeah.
Yet that hit has been caused by somebody down there. True. So the president, in my view, ought really crack the whip and use, for example, say the reports from controller of budget,
Auditor General,
and say, okay, wewe ulisema utajengea watu hospitali,
ndio report imetoka.
Why is that nini?
Yeah.
Crack the whip. Like now, even the question of fertilizer, Mwesh, there's an admission from the very highest office in this land. Deputy President says 50,000 bags were fake. Can Alinturi say this? Can Itumbi say this? And that.
Spokesman says this.
Yeah, but seriously, Mavia Punda, so the question really, what Kenyans are asking, Mwashi, is where is accountability for all these things? And that's where the problem really is.
Yeah.
Because if you have accountability, let me tell you, you will go to bed and sleep soundly, knowing very well that whoever it is given money down there actually is using that money prudently as Article 201 of the Constitution demands.
And I think, Daktari, before we progress, let me just respond to the issue of why I believe that devolution was a replication of services, representation, but not service, as had been intended by the 2010 Constitution. You find that when Treasury is doing the budget allocation to the county governments. They don't have direct AIEs that says this AIE is directly sent to cater for this vote head. Perhaps ensuring that hospitals have equipment, doctor salaries, maybe buying medicine from KEMSA. So what happens at the local level? The money is sent to, say, Kirinyaga County. Then they sit and have a budget of theirs. The governor has priority areas given where maybe they want to put there. And I can see a lot of them are doing structures, of course, because structures have a percentage. You know how government works. So they decide that, healthcare is not a priority. Salaries for doctors are not a priority. I'm going to put this money into a structure. We want to build a facility, and we have very, 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 very well detailed and aesthetically looking beautiful structures. But then you go into the facility, you cannot get basic services. I'll give you a very real example. That time when I had the incident in Kirinyaga where I was attacked, the first hospital that I went to was the Kirugoya Referral Hospital, which is a level 4 hospital in Kirinyaga County. Actually, the best. We had the president come and launch the new wing of the hospital. They did not have painkiller. And you see me at my level, so they would expect that if Mheshimiwa cannot get these, of course she can even speak about it to the people, right? As a representative of the people, because it is my job to also make sure that my people are being served at all levels of government. But then I had to actually send someone to go buy a painkiller. They gave me Tramol from outside. We don't have even the basic amenities for the first aid when you come to hospital, because of course you want to be relieved of pain first before any other treatment is undertaken. There was no doctor
on site
because health professionals have decided I have a own facility of mine that is private, and that is something we said we must ensure. If you're a public doctor, if you want to open a private clinic, wacha uende ufungue private clinic, because you find that the medical students are actually the ones who are treating patients in our public hospitals, sorry to say. And if you go to the private clinics, even when there's that doctor's strike, the private clinics are operating. Nairobi Hospital is seeing patients. The rich are getting healthcare, but the poor people are not. So it is not that they have withdrawn their services. They're saying, well, the person who can pay for it, we are going to actually take your money, but you can't pay for it. So it is actually discrimination. So from where I stand, we really had intended to devolve services. But what we have seen from the 10 years of devolution, we have devolved representation. But services, we really yet to get it right. You have said that the national government is supposed to oversight county governments. I remember we had a conversation. We have the 2022 Mental Health Act. Very robust, very detailed law. So I had the CS for health come to Parliament to see why we haven't actualized it. But then it provides that county governments are supposed to form, a board at the county level, and then have a facility that is dedicated to mental health care, rehabilitation, and all that. But they haven't. And then they say that the national government, the COG says national government is interfering with the functions of county governments, and there's this whole issue of separation of powers. So, really, we did not think about the correlation and just that relationship between county government and national government. And I have said time and time again, if county governments fail, if county government, no, in on paper, yes. But like I have said, even on the legislation, your mental health act, it is there. But then, we fail at the implementation level. And even majority of our legislation, there's just a disconnect.
You see, because the reason it is not there or not practically being realized, because you have a crisis of leadership in this country, where, for example, people have not understood, for example, what is a national? What does our constitution say? And you do not have, for example, leadership that is proactive to say, no, we are at the national, this is our responsibility. Constitutionally, we demand of you to do certain things. For example, right from Article 6 of the Constitution of Article 3, if I'm not wrong, it talks about cooperation and partnership between two levels of government. Yes. They must work together. Yes. And then that is even more clarified in Article 187, where you can actually transfer certain function between the two levels of government. If that function can be effectively realized in that level of
Yes.
government. So that conversation was being had by the leadership of the country. And if they had that, then there is even Article 189 that is very clear that that transfer can actually be reduced in the form of an agreement so that the partnership is clear. For example, today, I come from Turkana. With the kind of insecurity that we have there, of what value is it to hold national security at the national level when I need it as a Kenyan? Because the Constitution protects me. Ideally, you should be able to say, can we sit with the governor, say, of Turkana, Governor of Marsabit, Wajir, Baringo, for example, and say, Governor Baringo, we are transferring this national security, an element of it, to be under your control,
for purpose
but under
of
an agreement, but you report to me. It doesn't take away the power of the national. It doesn't take away the power of the presidency. Because even today, Mwesh, as you know, the president can actually come to you guys in parliament and say, please allow me to use the military to quell insecurity nationally. And once that is allowed by parliament, you then put the military under the direction of the inspector general. And that is temporal. So you reduce it to an agreement. So Mwesh, I think this is the conversation that we are not having. And leaders, either at the national level, right from the presidency, is not assertive enough to say, you governor so and so. When you don't have money, you blame us, the national government. You say government has not given us money. Because that's the common talk. So they paint the presidency in very bad light because they have not.
And they never say when they get the money, by the way.
Exactly. And when they get the money, and they steal the money, then also the presidency keeps quiet, especially when there's a report given to you to say, look, this is County X. They're the ones who are shouting the loudest that hawajapatiwa pesa. Now that tumewapatia pesa, where is this money? So there's lack of confidence from both levels because politics in Kenya is about commercialization, it's about personal interest, not service to the people of Kenya. If it was service to the people of Kenya, I don't see why leaders cannot sit together and say,
agree.
This is the common good. Earlier on, you mentioned America. You see, there is serious competition between the Democrats and the Republicans in America. You know that when government is threatened with closure, both the Republicans and Democrats actually come together and say,
they agree.
There are certain essential services I don't want my people to suffer. So we'll pass this. They pass. Although sometimes they compete politically, but when it comes to issues that really hurt their people, they come together. Why can't we have that conversation, Mwesh?
I don't know whether it is the age of our democracy or it is our social engineering.
No.
Or we just have that, we have that...
Our politics has become both sides, we are pulling towards the extreme too much that we forget at the center of it is the Kenyans. So we are working to please our masters, our political masters. We are working to please... I cannot touch Daktari because I need him in the next re-election. I cannot touch Mheshimiwa because...
There are only two favorite politicians that I have in this country.
Who and who?
Mushomba and Alfred Keter.
Radicals.
They're not radical. I think they are very honest. I mean, if you look at, for example, I follow Mushomba.
They're the opposition.
Well,
within government.
They're in DA. Like Mushomba is in UDA, but she's saying no. Yes, you are my party, but see, we are not doing the right thing. And what she's saying is right. And I wish many people could say that you don't have to abandon your party.
But you can call them out.
But you can call them out and say, no, we are not doing the right thing. Alfred Keter knows this from Nandi. He knows that there's a region controlled by, say, the president and his party. But he doesn't shy away from saying the truth. And I think, Mwesh, what we are lacking in this country is just people not being able to say the truth. And that was the reason why I stopped.
Do you think they say the truth because they really, like you said, the issue you have with opposition, right? You had said in the earlier conversation. Yeah. Do you think they say the truth because they mean well for Kenyans, or do you think they say the truth because they have a different point of let's say maybe where their loyalties lie?
Well, it could be both. But on a balanced probability, from what I hear about Mushomba, for example, how she speaks, and Alfred Keter, and of course among others, there are also many other good politicians out there. Even the way you stood up against, what they did to you in Kirinyaga, and that was commendable. You stood your ground, and that's the kind of courage we want to see in leadership. And I think that is what, honestly,
It's
will
lacking.
give Kenyans hope that, we have certain leaders who cannot start certain nonsense. And that's really good for the country. We don't always have to suck up too. Yeah?
Even when things are going wrong.
Another example I can give you is the so-called rebel MPs from Luo Nyanza, Karoli Omondi, Nani,
Akina Jalango.
Jalango, and the rest. Why would you frustrate a member of parliament to have audience with the President of the Republic of
Who
Kenya?
is trying to seek you services?
Exactly. But also, I don't agree with them that you must hang out with the president to bring development. The president doesn't control development.
And every member of parliament has an allocation.
Exactly.
Anyway.
And it cannot be denied because you're
But for
from
me,
a different party.
I commended them when they say, no, this is the president of the Republic of Kenya. We will receive him, as it should be. I mean, William Ruto can go anywhere in this country.
He is the president.
He is the president of the Republic of Kenya. So you cannot tell me I cannot associate with him. He's our president, whether you like it or not. Whether you don't like him or you like him, he's still the president. So I think what Kenyans are actually missing is to see honest leadership, and like going back to this question of devolution.
But
Today,
do they-
the national government was to stamp its authority and say, when you guys don't have money, you castigate us, you vilify us as the national government.
You shout everywhere.
You shout everywhere. You make the government, the presidency look so bad. But now when you get money and you steal it, I think the same
don't want to be
presidency should be
questioned.
able to come and say, no, now we're going to deal with you. Let me tell you, if you work with auditors, like I do work with accountants and auditors, auditors take about, 6 months to audit your books.
Yes.
Honestly, wanakubembeleza. Ulisema utajenga hii barabara.
Hebu kuja, hebu tueleze.
Makaratasi nini. By the time they put down their report, and this is
They
why
have
I
tried.
fought you as a parliament, they have already made a finding. But it is parliamentarians who reduce them into audit queries. Audit queries come before you write a final report, a final audit. With that audit finding, somebody should be in the dock. And you need that auditor to actually just explain in less than 10 minutes. Do you go to County X? What did you find out? What was the vote aid for that project? Did you find the money? No. That people should be going to jail. In fact, right now, we should be having a special jail somewhere in Chalbi Desert for just thieves of public money. And I think...
I remember I had told the president we need to start hanging some of these people.
Just to give
to make an example of it.
I want them to be put in a glass, a transparent prison.
Uko kwa
Where
desert.
people can be watching them.
So that we can go and watch.
Sasa, before we finish, quickly, CS Nakumicha, there was a motion moved. Ama ni babu,
Was it tabled? I think it has not been
but
tabled.
it has not been
It
tabled.
hasn't, but signatures, I believe, were collected.
Yes, about her impeachment.
Let me first really touch on what Dr. said. In regard to, honest politicians, what I always ask is, do Kenyans really want honest politicians? Do they want people who speak truth to
honest?
power? Besides even that, right? Because you find that, like we have said, people vote along tribal lines and
political affiliations.
Political affiliations. You find that anyone who was not in UDA in Kirinyaga County, actually no one was elected on any other ticket in Kirinyaga County. Do people really want honest politicians? And at the end of the day, every human is informed by survival. Daktari, as a person, you're informed by survival, even in the legal profession. Even as you inform maybe what case to take, what not to take, and all that. At the end of the day, we have to really agree. We have a society that does not want honesty. Our people, they thrive on lies. They want to hear all those sweet things. You'll tell them that, you'll not do. There's a young person who asked me for a job. And I told them my office does not have the capacity to employ because we don't get an expanded salary to pay employees. So after you have maybe the 811, that's it, right? So I told her, she's like, no, Mheshimiwa, you cannot tell me that. You're in capacity to get me a job. And I tell her, but people are recruited competitively. So you actually have to apply for a job and then you're recruited, right? And she was like, no, you're refusing to get me a job. So we have, and these are challenges I have encountered. We have a society that does not want to be told the truth. They will kick you out in the next election so quickly. You running on your ideologies and saying that you're informed by ideologies, they do not want to hear that. So, like we say in economics, do we have the environment for that? You know,
but
your good and my good friend Martha Karua, who comes from Kirinyaga, just because of having a different viewpoint and opinion. So we really have to have that conversation.
But Mheshimiwa, you are raising a very fundamental point, which is that we are dealing with a crisis of leadership. You see,
that stems from the people who elect the leaders.
Yes, it's possible, but also as a leader yourself. When you say yourself you're a leader, it means you're actually leading. What certain ideologies, what value system are you actually impacting on the people you lead so as to be able to change their mindset? You see, the way I see leadership, just like in our homes, if you're a father or mother, you must be able to ensure that in your home, there are certain things that you cannot tolerate. Like my kids cannot smoke or drink alcohol in my home, or even drink alcohol. I mean, and I'm very, very clear that you want to do those things only when you can afford. When you have a job, you are responsible. That's when you can do those. But for me, I can drink my wine in front of you because I can afford. But there are certain things I cannot tolerate. In my house. So leadership is a value that must cascade downwards. So when you are leading a people, you must show them the way. Now the problem is in Kenya, we don't have leaders who actually will show people the way. We have leaders who say, okay, I have to accumulate wealth now so that next time I'm just... And it's true. You are right also, Mwesh, by saying the populace has also pushed leaders to behave in a certain way.
It's been from both sides.
But you should be able, as a leader, you should be able to say, no, I don't think this is the right way for us to go as a country. You earlier on, you gave the example of Kibaki. Kibaki wasn't vocal. You never saw him on top of cars like now we are seeing Ruto.
No, he used to call people mafia cuckoo.
Exactly.
At least I remember him for that.
He never campaigned full time. But people said he was is it General what?
Kigoya.
But somehow during Kibaki's time, things were working. So it is also a style of leadership. How do I inculcate certain value systems in my people so that they know? Earlier on we spoke about Kagame. In Kagame's Rwanda today, you get into Kagame, international airport in Kigali with a paper bag, they just take it away from you. It's automatic. You don't.
No two ways about it.
No two ways about it. You jump the light, you're in trouble. We clean the streets every Saturday of every month. People do the runs, walks. It's sparkling clean. It's just become a habit because at the very top, this is what he desires as a leader. We are not doing that much.
But there was a social re-engineering in 1994 in Rwanda, so we really cannot compare in terms.
But you see, there's also...
But even as we had 2007 and 2008 post-election violence, and we keep on denying 1,200 people
did not die.
That people were not killed in Kiamba Church in Eldoret. So we keep on denying this. We keep on denying that money is not being stolen. Because leaders steal money, and then the next thing they do, they rally their community and say, mnaonea mtu wetu. So for me, it's a
they go vie for political position.
For me, it's a leadership crisis because then we don't have leaders who actually lead people in a certain direction. And people, before by the way, now people praise Singapore and even the tiger economy of Southeast Asia.
Really,
we were at par.
Yeah, we were at par.
Yeah, in the 1960s. But people said Lee Kuan Yew was a dictator. Because Lee Kuan Yew did not tolerate certain manners.
Which is why I asked, do we really need democracy?
Yeah.
Is it working for us?
Yeah, but Singapore is a very big democracy right now as we speak. But he said, no, certain manners, like in our own kids, you have to punish certain bad manners. Punishing bad manners doesn't mean you are a dictator.
Or you hate them.
Or you don't, subscribe to democracy. You're just saying, no, certain things we cannot. Like now, theft of public money from the county levels. That's why people now can joke that we have devolved corruption.
Yeah.
Why are we even having this conversation? It's like we are saying, let's tolerate theft of public money.
But even the judiciary is very corrupt. You go to court, you buy a court order.
Mwesh and Daktari.
As a lawyer, that's a factor of evidence.
It is a factor of evidence.
The thing is, we have a lot of pilferage going on in our governments, both local and national. As a Kenyan sitting here, you're asking me to pay more tax because I'm on a certain tax bracket to pay for SHIF. Nilipia ule mtu ambaye hana. But from where I'm sitting, I am removing this money, itaenda kuibiwa. That is number one. Number two, the relationship between the people and the leadership is very symbiotic. In that, if I see my leader going this direction, I know Honorable Njeri amesema tunaenda hivi. So somehow I will rebel, but I will start to see why we are going this way. But the problem is we have also made our leadership very transactional. In the way that I steal public money, ninaiba tuseme from whatever parastatal, the next thing I do to go and protect this money is to vie for a seat. What are we doing? Tunashinda tukirotate. Kama niliiba ya parastatal, what makes you think yako ya county ndo itabaki? And you see, we have allowed that to a point where we have inculcated it in Kenyans to think it is okay for people to steal public money and go and vie for public office. And we elect.
And not even that, imagine.
And you know what? One of the things that Mheshimiwa maybe I will not say. You know what people say down there? Kama unaiba huko juu.
Exactly.
Unaiba hapa chini. And nobody is there to moralize the other.
Because
it does cascade down. Yes. But also another thing is, if I will spend 50 million to campaign for the county MP seat, right? Even the salary in the 5 years is around 40 million. You know,
the math
with
is
the
not
deductions,
mathing.
it's not even mathing, because we also have, we pay tax, I think, around 340,000 tax. We have also SCHIF and now the house. So it comes to around maybe 400, in tax. Because I see people running around saying MPs are earning 700. So when you get the deductions, the math doesn't even math. So if I will actually spend 50 million to campaign for this seat, where do you expect as a Kenyan? Because you have made it very transactional that if I am dishing money to you,
it's the only way
that is the only way you will elect me. And I always tell the people of Kirinyaga, I'm very grateful that I did not dish out money during my campaigns. I told them I'm a young person.
Where am I getting 50 million?
And I told them, look, I have gone to school and I will actually go to represent you. And that is why I take it upon myself to explain to them the 7 million, the way I have spent it to the very last coin, because I have nothing of interest to take from them. But then we have also made our leadership transactional. So where do you expect that politician that you elected to get the money to come give you in the next election? Of course, when they first get in the first thing they are thinking is as amassing as much as they can.
But what stops politicians from refusing to use their own money? I mean, when in 2017 when we ran, I was very clear to my team, I'm not going to use any of my personal money because I don't want to be a corrupt leader. Because the temptation is very high.
Yeah.
That when you use your own personal money,
you want to get it back.
And with that kind of society, chances are very high you will want to recoup it once you get into public office. That is the making of a corrupt leader, and that's how we fail actually as a country. Look at, for example, countries like America, which we sometimes say, we want to
emulate,
copy what they do. The moment you declare you're a presidential candidate, people look at
people
your agenda.
People actually fund.
Within even 24 hours, 48 hours, people have raised millions
They're
of
the ones
US
who raise
dollars
money.
To support your presidency.
They put you on the road until now when you test the waters. Like most candidates, most parties, Democrats and Republicans, probably start with about 20 candidates, 15 candidates.
Narrow it down.
And all of them are funded by public money until, and they declare their money anyway. I mean, they are audited. Until they drop down, they say, okay, what are my chances? They drop down, maybe they support the next. But in Kenya, it's the opposite, So I think we also now need leaders who can say, no, I'm not going to.
We need to clean up.
It will need to be collective. Otherwise, Daktari, you will be isolated in a corner saying you're not dishing money and you will not get to the presidency.
Okay.
I will be at a corner saying we're no longer dishing money, and I will not be able to even now impart on the policies that I said we need to come here to the National Assembly to ensure that we make. It will be like the elite, the way they say, sisi atutaki siasa. You see the way you go to talk to doctors and tell you, hey, siasa, apana hiyo kitu.
Until they're on the streets.
But you see, these cascade down to policies that impact you as a doctor, they impact you as a health practitioner. So at the end of the day, we really can't sit away. Ni kama kusema, unajua mahali unakuta kuna matope, there's mud. You can decide not to get in or get in and do something different. Just make even the small changes that you're able to make in your small way.
Civic education is very important.
The problem is, we need to change the terminology. We no longer should not be talking about civic education.
Unataka tuseme aje
political
daktari? Education. Okay.
This is what actually this country needs. And I think part of the major problem, especially with the political leadership in our country, is they have made being in a certain position is a matter of life and death.
That is the truth.
And I've always said, and I even tell my team at Thirdway, don't come into politics if you do not have any other means of survival.
That's
why I have never stopped practicing my law. My law firm has always been running.
That's what she was telling me before you came here. Yeah.
The moment you make politics your bread and butter, you're completely
you will do anything.
And there are many politicians today in this country who cannot do anything. All they do is they invest in buying newspapers. Nani amekufa leo, tuende mazishi, tuende tuongee siasa.
Ama kwenda kutafuta vile watafikia president to lobby for something.
That's all they do. But for me, maybe part of the reason why we are not too effective politically, because when I wake up in the morning, I have to attend some course list, either before a high court judge, a magistrate. Because
you have too many things to do.
That's my bread and butter. That's what feeds me, and I'm happy that. But I'll spare time to do politics because I have to get involved in the governance of my country.
Yes.
But see, the moment you make politics your bread and butter, I don't want to mention names, but there are politicians in this country of many, many years. They've been in public space for many years. There's nothing you can associate with them
positively.
Or even positively.
And that's true.
Yeah.
People keep giving me the pressure of, now you need to amass as much as you can for the next election. I tell them,
why?
I am here to serve. I have a 5-year contract with the people of Kirinyaga County. If they feel, because I am giving it my best, if they feel that, maybe for whatever reason that maybe someone has come, they've dished money or whatever, I will be very much at peace. And that is why my practice is still... Because it is,
we had
that is who I am, and I have actually earned it. I am an advocate I will never quit to be an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. But then, of course, like I have said, it is a systemic issue, and you find that in isolation, you're not able to
effect change
or effect that change. We have very robust provisions of the Election Offences Act that says that you should not be dishing money around, but they do dish money.
They do.
And I don't see anyone coming to arrest politicians when they're dishing money. So you see, even IBC does not have the capacity
to
fully implement the same.
IBC. Your fellow
I say that everyone now wants to be part of the selection panel so that they can move
the
it.
Players are picking the referees.
So how do you expect the referee to stand up against you anyway? So hata tu kuongea maneno ya CS daktari
time hata imeisha.
To be honest with you, okay, so very briefly, there is one mistake that Nakumicha is making. One, she's turning out to be a very ignorant person in matters medical. I don't know. I'm told she's also in the medical profession. I did some quick research, but just by word of mouth, asking guys in the medical field. So, who is this minister? She said, no, she's some of those third grade people went to do a certificate on drug distribution, like from a pharmacy.
Surely.
No, but serious, that's what one very senior doctor told me, that she probably has a certificate, not even a diploma on drug distribution.
So it's not pharmacy? It's not a degree in
like
pharmacy?
I think pharmacy, yeah. So, and the reason I asked this, because if she was really in the medical field, there is a misunderstanding on a medical intern. You see, a medical intern, and Wakili can also confirm, is not like the interns we take into our law firms. The interns we take into our law firms go through what we call apprenticeship system or training. They are learning on the job. A medical intern in the practice of medicine globally is actually a fully qualified doctor.
Yes.
Okay? He actually leads a team. He's a frontline soldier. So these are not people that you say that you will pay 70,000. Let's do the maths. If you pay 70K, after taxation, that goes to about what, 47 or 48? 48K. Let's assume that person pays rent of what, maybe 30K?
Even at the minimum.
30K. And this is a professional. So that gives
17.
you what? 17K. How does he survive 17K? To come and save life. And these are people who save life every minute. Not like these Weshimiwas who work Tuesday to Thursday. And then they are given transport allowance, sitting allowance, kwenda kupiga makelele huko kwa mazishi na kupigana na watu. Then we are talking about a person trained for,
on call 24
for
hours.
6 years. And even when they are not on duty, they are either on call. During COVID time, they are the only public servants who had no excuse not to go to work.
Frontline soldiers, like
while
you
the
call
rest
them,
of us
were home
during
cooked up.
lockdown, we were wondering, what do I do?
Leo hata nimekosa kitu ya kufanya.
We start maybe sitting in our gardens.
Tuna bake banana bread.
But these guys will be on standby 24/7.
That's true.
And this is how much we actually don't respect doctors in this country. And unfortunately, the president has put somebody who's so ignorant, does not understand the rigors of the medical profession to be in charge of doctors.
So do you think doctors
it has
CS?
put Nakumicha in very, very bad light, because now we are even hearing certain things
that we don't need to hear.
We don't need to hear.
Which things are those that you're hearing?
I don't know whether it should be defamation if I say it, but I know she's a married woman, right? But there are also stories around, the connection with some powerful guy. Maybe that's why, because of her incompetence and non-performance at job, now people are even digging more. Who is this character? And this is the sad thing, that if now we begin to really look down upon our CS in charge of health,
respect for the office,
which is, now there's disrespect for that office generally. Even to the extent now parliamentarians are saying it's time to impeach her. But again, I still blame President William Ruto on this kind of non-performance by the CSS. Because the reason I say this, I am an employer. I'm the person who gives you the job and say, Ms. Maina, you've said you want a job. These are the terms of reference for these jobs. Please go ahead and execute them. And if you're not able to execute it, as the employer, I have responsibility, especially because of the impactful nature of your office and of your job to the nation. I should be able to tell you, what, I don't think...
We cannot move like this.
We cannot move here. I think, let me just have your resignation. We part ways elegantly. There is no point of retaining such non-performing cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries, really. That's the same way we talk about with the fertilizer, not just the Mitch alone. If there's an admission, the people from NCPB, instead we are going for some 8 small fellows at KEBS, because that's what they did. They suspended some 8 fellows from KEBS. Because I suspect, and I'm sure I'm very right, the samples that were taken to KEBS were actually genuine.
But what was on ground is what now.
Because they didn't take the entire NCPB, store.
They've also gone after the supplier.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that, I like that.
Yes.
Because there must be a paper trail.
Imetoka wapi,
the transporter, all those people. Because going for KEBS guys did not inspect all the materials.
The whole stock.
Of course, it's not possible.
They only do
samples.
And I'm sure they took the right sample.
Of course.
Yes.
Nobody could have taken that.
Really? Ni kama kurusha mawe police station.
Now CS hapo ndani.
Allow me to respond to CS Nakumicha's issue. I find it very unfortunate that people like to take away from the leadership of women any private matter of any leader. Should not even be a concern for anyone. Because at the end of the day, I never hear anyone say that this man is connected to someone powerful. That is why they're remaining in that position. And at the end of the day, give me an example of a CS. We have an issue with fertilizer. Give me an example ya mtu anasema the CS wa fertilizer.
You're about Linturi falling at night and is whatever found.
No, Daktari. No, I'm saying the direct link that people are alluding to. The reason why CS Nakumicha is a CS for health and the reason why she's still in that docket is because apparently she is, rather maybe connected to someone powerful in government. So that is what I say. It is very unfortunate, Daktari.
Even CS's men are powerfully connected.
Yes, but I never hear people bring it up. It never comes up as a discussion. So it should not, whether the CS is performing or not, it should never come up that a female leader, the reason apparently they're holding, or maybe they're still in that seat, is because apparently they're allegedly connected to someone powerful. Because when the leadership of men is questioned, it is questioned on merit. So let us question female leadership on merit. Second thing, we have said that healthcare is devolved. The national government gave county governments a record 390 billion Kenya shillings. Before members of parliament even got the NGCDF, county governments had the money to run their facilities at the county level. The CS is only responsible for certain level facilities and for the deployment of medical interns. as late as 2010, and I know Daktari can attest to this because it is available in public records, we had only around maybe 300 to 500 students per year. We have said, and he has confirmed that even the legal profession, we are now at a capacity of 22,000. We have 2,000 newly admitted advocates every year. So for medical interns, they were earning 2,000 or 6,000. And actually the government has absolutely no issue with paying that amount. But then we have moved from that 500 to 1,500. So the question for government is, do we now start admitting in batches so that we are able to cater for these students, maybe take 1,000 per year and tell you the 500 of you wait so that you can get your internship later and be able to be a practicing doctor.
Mwesh is misleading the public here. You know, as a lawyer, you ought to know that a collective bargaining agreement is a legally binding document.
It is.
And it was signed in 2017.
Yes.
Where the current salary that the medical interns are demanding is actually on paper. It is in that agreement which is legally binding. And it was executed before a judge.
But Daktari also knows.
It came as an order of the court. But see, again, I'm not surprised listening to a UDA member of parliament.
No, see, I am a politician and I'm wearing my political hat.
No, but you said that.
But I will also bring you into light of other perspectives.
But you earlier on said that you have not abandoned your legal profession. You are still
I'm still practicing.
Exactly. You're still an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, meaning, therefore, let's play fidelity to the law.
I have no issue with the CBA.
The law is the CBA binding from 2017, and the salaries were clearly defined. Over and above that, now that you're playing politics, you're deciding to play politics against a legally binding document, but then you are telling Kenyans, I'm going to introduce chief administrative secretaries.
And SRCI so did a review to up the salaries for the executive.
No, but they were there, even the cast were there in the previous government.
And then you are telling us it's okay for us to go on largesse, expending, even when you say we did not inherit any money, but you have got ghost workers in State House, you have ghost workers in the office of the president.
Which ghost workers?
No, but it was, I mean, it's not...
We are alluding. We cannot be informed, Daktari, by what is read by the media. We cannot, Daktari. Because they also have a narrative to shape.
Was it not the controller of budget that actually published that report? No, not Public Service Commission.
Yes,
Public Service Commission.
Now, let me first finish on the doctor strike.
Ghost workers, surely, do you know... You know we should not even be having this conversation.
No, let me first finish on the doctor strike because you had your time,
is over.
So that I can make sure that I pass across the points.
1 second. The amount the doctors are asking to teach, you know, it's only 4.5 billion. 4.5 billion. That's all they're asking for.
I am now Daktari. I allowed you because you're my senior in the profession. Let me say this.
Mwesh, go on.
There's no issue with the CBA, and that is why I have said that government has no issue with paying 2,000 or 6,000. If they can agree that, well, we take 500 students
because they are not agreeing. So it means there's an issue.
We take 500 students this year, and then we onboard the rest as we go. And then another thing. No. There has been discussions. You're not privy to those discussions. No. Daktari, you cannot allude to things that you're not privy to. The CS, as we speak right now, and even the head of public service, they have had several conversations and meetings with
we have a crisis in Kenya on matters.
And it is not an issue. It's
an issue.
No, I'm telling you that the conversation is progressive and it is there. So the issue of the conversation cannot be brought up that they're not engaging because they have been engaging, but they're not agreeing. But you see, the medics are coming and saying there was a CBA in 2017, 2021, right? That was right after the election of the then former president. And it was, Wakili, that there are things that are done under duress. And that CBA was entered under duress. No. And we are saying that the current structure and the medical students that we have, the interns, we're not able to absorb them. And that is the fact of the matter.
With all due respect, you cannot voluntarily sign a collective bargaining agreement before a judge, and then now you come to say it was under duress. In fact,
Wakili, you also saw there's something that we call frustration, in law. And if you can enter into a contract and then say there are sometimes unforeseen circumstances.
No, who frustrated you?
After the 2010
who frustrated you?
change in the election in the education policies, we now have more than 1,500.
Who frustrated you?
No, I am saying we do not have the funds the government would want.
Who was under duress to sign the agreement?
What do you mean who was under duress?
Because you're saying it was.
But we have had strikes from medics from.
It's okay, but you're the one.
As far back as I can remember. So what I'm saying is, there was a new government coming in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uhuru was getting
Uhuru
in,
government.
right? It was immediately after the elections. You're told, well, we are going on strike. Let me tell you, no, even the president. It is not a mess that any president wants to deal with. But then we tell the doctors that come, let us have a conversation because that CBA, the terms, we are not able to honor them. And it is not because, it is not a matter of won't. It is a matter of we do not have the capacity.
One of the saddest things.
You say that this country is underpaying medical interns. Yes, I just want you to look. Because you say this country, so I don't know whether you've looked at Uganda, you've looked at Tanzania, and at the end of the day,
have you read the Abuja Declaration? Have you read the Abuja Declaration?
No, I haven't, so I will not speak on that
so I'll tell
because
you,
I haven't.
Let me then give you information. The Abuja Declaration, it was declared and binding all over Africa that you must set aside 15% of your national budget towards Medicare because it's important for any country. Other countries have done it except Kenya. Now, when you talk about other government. First of all, this excuse needs to stop. It was after the signing of this CBA.
It is not an excuse, it's a fact actually. Just look at what Uganda is paying the medical interns. Look at Tanzania. No, I'm saying, you say this country, you say this country, so I'm saying let's have a comparative analysis.
To inform you in case hamujui, time.
Yes, but it's also important.
We need a conversation for this one.
But it's important.
You will come back.
It's important we point out certain facts.
Yes.
When the CBA was signed in 2017, because the government hates its own people so much, it decided not to honor that CBA and instead imported Cuban doctors, where they are paid up, I think, minimum of 540,000 towards 1 million, depending on on their experience. And that's a fact. It's also documented.
Yeah, the previous government.
But see, as a lawyer, I'm disappointed you can say that the government is in perpetuity.
Yes, it is. Matter. Yes, it is. But there was a sitting president, and everyone has an agenda when they come, and that is why we have the Kenya Kwanza plan.
But what is already documented as part
it is in perpetuity, but you cannot blame it on the current president.
Basic law, even a first-year law students will tell you government is in perpetuity. So let's not argue about that.
No, that is not arguable. But we have a sitting president, and we had a former president. That is also a matter of fact, Wakili. It is plain even to the common wananchi to see.
A new president does not take away the perpetuity of government.
It does not. And that is not the rationale of the argument. What I'm saying is that once a new president come in, they come in with their agenda. And that is why you're saying that the Kenya Kwanza, but you just on record saying that the Kenya Kwanza government does not have an agenda that is implementing what we promised to Kenyans.
If you want to go that route, then let's be very brutally honest.
So it exists in perpetuity.
Let's be brutally honest. Some of the projects that William Ruto was launching not long ago were started by the previous government. So why didn't he say, these projects were Uhuru's government? After all, he's been saying that it's been segregated and put aside. Why then is he continuing any projects that Uhuru started?
Because they had been funded already.
As a matter of fact, exactly.
That when money is committed already. But you see, the medics, like I have said, I
will have you come back.
Okay, but
this is what we should have started with. My senior wants to steal a match.
No, I don't want to steal a match.
And misinform the people on the comparative analysis.
I'm only telling the people basic rules in governance and in government. Perpetuity is a principle in any government. Just like now, some of the projects started by the Jubilee administration, where William Ruto was actually a deputy president for 10 years, he has continued. He has not stopped them because now he's the new president.
But the projects that had been launched by the former government that we are not continuing with.
To keep on saying that, actually, it's misleading people and playing to very cheap politics, because party politics. And I think that is exactly what has undermined the governance of this country. Because you come with the idea of party. And earlier on, she alluded to the fact that we don't have philosophy, the ideology.
But Daktari forgets I'm also a politician. So, of course, I...
But you see, you're contradicting yourself, Ms. Maina.
No, I'm not.
You are contradicting yourself, because earlier on you said, it is time we have honest politicians. Kenya do not have honest politicians.
I asked, are Kenyans ready for honest politicians?
But are you ready to be honest yourself?
And we end our discussion.
There.
On that note, so thank you very much for joining
We
us
need more
today.
time on this.
No, I will definitely
That
bring you
wasn't fair.
back with your senior. Hivyo tuna hiyo mutaratara. I have truly enjoyed the discussion, and I am
Yeah,
sure we have learned one or two things as Kenyans, first of all, and that is what is important. Daktari says this show, we aim to educate and tell the truth as it is. So karibu tena sana Mwesh.
Thank you very
I would
much.
really like to continue this conversation.
we will
and
start with
have
it
to,
next time.
We have to continue.
We started with the wrong things.
No, but we also needed to understand
Yeah.
the bill in depth.
Sure.
It is not a wrong thing. And like you said, it is speaking to the plight of Kenyans and especially young people. So it was equally important.
Very important.
Yes, thank you for heeding to our call and joining us this morning. And Daktari, as always, asante sana kwa kukuja. And I hope next week utakuwa hapa. Nita make sure Mwesh ako na wewe hapa.
Kwanza sasa tuanzie hapo. And I am ready. I'm a politician, so I can also play
You come
politics.
ready?
I will come ready.
Okay, no problem.
I'm with facts.
So thank you guys for joining us on our socials. That is New Day TV, Facebook and YouTube, for being part of the conversation. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and have the conversation online to endele before we can have another sit down next week. So thank you for joining. See you next week, same place, same time. God bless. Have a good weekend. Enjoy your weekend. Please do not drink and drive. Enjoy your drink responsibly. We cannot keep losing more Kenyans on the road because of that.